Look out, boxing fans. It's your boy Ash. About to do this end of the year boxing awards. I can't do an end of the year boxing awards as it pertains to the YouTube boxing community because I haven't been around. I wouldn't have any idea as to who's been like the hottest YouTube channels to break down fights. I don't even know everybody that's in the community now, you know what I'm saying? But I do know that there are some legit channels out there that I do listen to. Of course, you know, you got Blood 78, you know, the usual suspects, D-Style. I listen to Boxing Beats and Rhymes too. Man, I hate when I have to do name dropping. I don't never ever remember everybody off the top. Mr. Boxing Today just came back. I always check this stuff out. Ropes. Man, just if you know I fuck with you, you know I fuck with you. Okay, let's leave it at that. Now, but what these awards are going to be the usual end of the year awards for boxing. You know what I'm saying? And let's go ahead and get it popping. Now, I'm going to first start this out, and I'm going to be, right off the bat, I'm going to be real biased. Round of the year. Now, you got so many good fights where you can dissect it as far as, you know, what rounds were the best in order to qualify. But for me, you know, I may be a little bit more I know I'm a bit partial because I just came back, and similar to me just coming back to YouTube, James Kirkland just came back to the sport of boxing and put on a brilliant fight for us. And in my opinion, the round of the year goes to Glenn Tapia versus James Kirkland, round 3. And in that round, you know, Tapia was showing that, you know, he was starting to fade a little bit. Actually, he was showing that towards the end of round 2. You know, he would start the rounds off real good, and then Kirkland would come on. And, you know, it went on from round 1, round 2, and I guess people thought after round 2, you know, he was kind of showing the signs of the beginning of the end, which is, you know, unfortunate for a guy who supposedly trained for 10 rounds or 12 rounds. I don't remember, you know, the duration of that fight. But in that fight in round 3, he came out guns blazing again, and he was putting some hands on Kirkland. And credit to Kirkland for enduring all that. I mean, he wasn't moving his head, he didn't have his hands up. He just looked like the rust showed, in other words. He needed those rounds, you know, for being inactive for so long. And credit to Kirkland to coming back to the game and taking on a young, hungry, undefeated prospect, giving him his first 0, you know, his first loss. My bad, not his first 0. Giving him his first loss. He had to be taught how to lose. He was accustomed to winning. And he was a guy who also comes forward in a lot of his fights, even though he can do a little bit more. Because in this fight with Kirkland, he showed he could box a little bit. But due to the fact that he would eventually go to the rope, shows that he don't use boxing on the move as a strategy for 12 rounds. It takes a lot of energy to move like that for 12 rounds. So he's a bit on the muscular side too that could play into it. But the bottom line is he ended up losing because of how the ring sorted out how that fight was going to go. But in round 3, I think that was a very action-packed fight. I'm sure some of you guys probably have a better round of the year, but I'm going to let that one go. Alright, next on the list, we're going to take a look at Trainer of the Year. Now, this has been one of the more controversial awards given out through the course of the years because the media had this love affair with Freddie Roach year after year after year. Even if there were other trainers out there more deserving of the Trainer of the Year, if it was during the time where Pacquiao had that very unprecedented run, Trainer of the Year went to Freddie Roach. I'm not taking nothing away from Freddie Roach. He's a very good professional trainer. But he got a lot of accolades thrown at him that he didn't deserve as well. And one of them, like when they appointed him to be over amateur boxing, when he never coached an amateur fighter, he never brought up any fighter from scratch, took them through the amateur system, then went pro with them and turned them into a world champion. Not one fighter has he done that to. But like I said, I'm not taking away from what he does. Obviously, when you work with so many world champions and you have the respect of so many world champions, you're doing something right. And for those guys that immediately get emotional because they think it's a race thing, you know who you are. I've always given credit to Dan Birmingham, who is white, who I always considered a great trainer, who has brought guys through the amateur system as champions, brought them through the professionals as champions, sometimes multi-champions, once or twice, 3 times. And now currently he has one of the hottest fighters in boxing in Keith Thurman. Dan Birmingham has always been one of my favorites, so that should debunk the theory there's race involved. I don't know why there's always an issue whenever someone does a video and they're not on deck. If it's a fighter or a trainer of a different race or a fighter of a different race, it doesn't automatically mean race. Please stop doing that. You really sound stupid, and you will get your ass blocked. Because I don't pop it like that. Boxing is boxing. Alright, but Dan Birmingham didn't make the cut this time. Even though that's my guy, I rock with Dan Birmingham or Tony Morgan. You know, he's another one who's white, who brought guys through amateurs and brought them to a world title. Very underrated. Pat Burns. He's probably not, in my opinion, I rate him a little lower than the other guys, but he's been around longer and he probably has a whole lot more respect. But in my opinion, the other guys are better. But anyway, this year, it can't go to Freddie Roach because I don't think his body of work for 2013 warrants him to win this award. I'm sure his name will always come up because you know of what he's done in the last decade or so, and you know what, with credit, but that don't mean you just win because your name's in it. But he's not winning. Some people think Floyd Mayweather Sr. should get the nod, and even though it's undeniable what he's done with his son, and the run that his son has had, not just this year but through the course of his career, I guess you can bring his name up. But his son is not the only fighter that he trains. He also trains a guy by the name of Mickey Bey, who lost the fight that he was winning against John Molina, trying to impress Floyd, who was sitting ringside, and ended up getting his ass knocked the fuck out. And immediately Senior likes to distance himself, like, oh, he didn't do what I say. Doesn't matter, that's still your fighter. And based on that loss, which was televised, which would have taken Mickey Bey to a different place in his career, I think, I can't give it to you this year either. And I know it's a shame because this guy should have been won. And I think he's won it once or twice with his work with Oscar De La Hoya in the past. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. I always go off the top of my head. But you're not winning it this year for me. Other guys that can enter into the conversation, the other hot trainers of the day are Robert Garcia, a guy I highly respect. I respected him as a fighter. I respect him as a trainer. He has a good body of work. Mikey Garcia knocked out Roman Martinez to win the world title. Nonito Donaire also beat Vic Darchinyan in a fight that he was losing. Knocked him out in dramatic fashion to win the fight when it looked like an upset was on the horizon. Credit to him for that. And of course, most recently, Chino beaten down Adrian Broner in a high-profile Showtime Championship fight, a fight that was supposed to take Adrian Broner to stardom, and those plans were derailed by the determination of Chino and, of course, a great game plan by Robert Garcia. But you have to throw into the fact that 2013 wasn't the best year for him either. Brandon Rios lost a fight with Mike Alvarado, albeit a very entertaining fight. A loss is a loss. And then coming off the loss, he gets his first high-profile moneymaker fight, a lotto ticket, to fight against Pacquiao in a not just a losing effort, in a pathetic effort, really. I mean, it just really didn't look. I mean, you got to credit Pacquiao, of course, because the attributes he had as a top-notch fighter, he still has those. But the performance displayed by Brandon Rios in that losing effort wasn't enough to make me say, you know what, they really had a great game plan going in, where they really did their due diligence on a fighter that has a lot of fights out there, a lot of tape to watch to figure out his tendencies. And that's 2 losses by Brandon Rios in 2013. And of course, Nonito Donaire getting his ass destroyed by Guillermo Rigondeaux early in 2013. You got to take that into account. It's not like the fight was competitive with Rigondeaux. It wasn't whatsoever. It was a one-sided beatdown. No matter what you say about it or how you feel about it, the bottom line is that Rigondeaux showed that there was a separation in class between them 2 fighters. I don't care what nobody say. If you're a pound-for-pound fighter and you have the resume of Donaire, you have seen every style that there is, and the bottom line, you get all the credit that you get, not just because of your resume or your skills, is because if you're a pound-for-pound fighter with those type of accolades, you obviously have the ability to adapt. And he never adapted in that fight. It was a wash, period. So based on those 3 losses, I had to eliminate Robert Garcia from even being considered for Trainer of the Year. This year, Trainer of the Year is probably going to go to somebody that's under the radar. I couldn't give it to Virgil Hunter, who was the trainer of now Amir Khan, who had a fight in 2013 and win against Julio Diaz. A win is a win. I know I gave him a lot of flack for that. And he also trains, I don't know if he should still be training them, but Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, who just won his first world title in a dominating victory over a guy who I like a lot. I've always liked him since he trained in Houston. Vanes Martirosyan, he just washed him. Those are very good wins to put under your cap. Andre, Ward beating Edwin Rodriguez, undefeated contender, who trains in Houston. Well, actually Richmond, but that's like on the outskirts. And he also trains Brandon Gonzalez, who he got robbed basically against Ozenhausen or whatever, the South African fighter from the super middleweight. Really good fighter. Brandon Gonzalez whooped his ass and got robbed in that fight. And then Brandon Gonzalez just had a victory against a guy who was 18-0, a prospect / contender, beat him. Those are very good wins for Virgil Hunter. And it could win him the award this year as pertains to the media. But for me, I can't give him I can't give him the award either, because he also trained Andre Berto this year, and Berto got his ass karate-sized by Jesus Soto Karass in a fight that was supposed to build Berto back to world title contention. And based on their skill level or attributes, Berto was supposed to beat Soto Karass, and it just didn't happen. Soto Karass was not to be denied. Berto got beat down again in consecutive fights, that is. And of course, that's not enough to keep Virgil Hunter from winning the award, but Virgil Hunter also trains Mike Dallas, and Mike Dallas got his ass knocked the fuck out in round 1 against Lucas Matisse. I'm sure they didn't go to training camp to get knocked out in 1 round, and that's a very good camp they got out there in California. There's a lot of good fighters to spar with out there, and it just didn't happen for Mike Dallas in that particular fight. So, who else? I don't know. Oh, he also was working with Alfred Angulo, who was in a very entertaining fight against Erislandy Lara. We all know what happened in the fight. Although it was entertaining, Angulo basically had the upper hand in the fight, but due to injury sustained, not from fouls, but from punches, he quit. And based on those 3 defeats, I can't give it to Virgil Hunter this year. So like I said, it's probably, in my book, it should go to somebody who's underrated, as it should sometimes. They always give it to the trainer who has, the most acclaim or who's getting the most attention. That doesn't make them the trainer of the year. In my opinion, trainer of the year is going to be out of Joel Diaz or John David Jackson. And Joel Diaz, of course, used to be a fighter, comes from a fighter family. Julio Diaz is big brother. Antonio Diaz is big brother. All 3 of them fought. And Joel Diaz trains Timothy Bradley, who had a good run for 2013. He beat Ruslan Provodnikov, who eventually would become champion in a very dominating fight. And, Bradley was undefeated. He had 2 fights. He won them both this year. Against Ruslan and Marquez. 2 very good fights, one of them being a high-profile pay-per-view. And then you got Omar Figueroa, who would go on to win a world title. Putting his name in the hat for potential big fights at 35. Also, Joel Diaz was very instrumental in helping Team Porter devise a game plan to beat Devin Alexander, as we saw Sean Porter dominate Devin Alexander for the IBF world title. So he's high on my list. And, one of the most underrated guys in boxing, John David Jackson. Rances Barthelemy is one of his fighters from Cuba. He's still undefeated. Had 2 or 3 fights this year that he won. And of course, John David Jackson is the trainer of one of the hottest fighters in boxing among the boxing hardcore, in Sergey Kovalev. Everybody's on his nuts, and for good reason. He's a beast. He himself had 4 fights this year. Who did he fight? Nathan Cleverly. He fought Nathan Cleverly. He fought Cornelius the Beast White, who actually trains from Houston. He's a very tough fighter, very strong fighter, always in shape. If you go to the gym, you're going to always see Cornelius White there. And, he's a good fighter, but it seemed like the mistakes that he makes in the ring are always catastrophic. So if he can ever get those big mistakes taken care of, he could be a top player, potential player at 68 at least, or 75. He is a very big boy, so he may just compete at 75. Who else did Kovalev beat? Kovalev just knocked out Ismail Salak. Who else did that dude? I know he fought 4 times. I remember that for sure. Oh, Campillo. Campillo was famously known for beating the dog shit out of Tavares Cloud and getting robbed. So there it is. 4 fights for Kovalev, and of course Rances Barthelemy being undefeated. So in my opinion, it's between those 2 guys. I guess you could throw Ronnie Shields' name in the hat too. I don't know why I didn't. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do that. All these guys are pretty much had an undefeated run this year. The Charlo twins, Erislandy Lara, who would win a world title. Edwin Rodriguez, he had a good run until he ran into that boy, but I don't think that's enough to lose. When you lose to Andre Ward, who hasn't at that weight? So, who else does Ronnie Shield train? Basically, that's it. I know all of them are prospects besides Lara and, of course, Jermell, who's going to be fighting for a world title at some point soon. And, alright, so it's going to be out of Ronnie Shields, John David Jackson, Joel Diaz. And the winner, in my opinion, goes to, I don't want to be biased here, because, I want to give it to Ronnie Shields. I went to school with his nephew. So, you know what I'm saying? But I'm going to keep it all the way 100. Trainer of the year should probably go to Joel Diaz, Bradley's trainer. So I'm going to be real and give it to him, but the runner-up is shared between John David Jackson and Ronnie Shields. They just missed out in my book. Moving on. Fighter of the year. This is not hard to, well, I guess it is kind of hard to think about. You got some great fighters that did great things this year. You got Adonis Stevens. He's been basically on a 10-fight win streak, all by KO. Now, of course, he didn't fight 10 times in 2013, but he did what he did in this at that weight this year, and one of those wins includes a dominating win over, I know he fought Tavares Cloud this year, and he dominated Tavares Cloud. It was not even close whatsoever. And I know he blew out Chad Dawson in one round. I still don't remember if that was this year or late last year. And then he just beat Bellew. So it can easily go to Adonis Stevens. I think it's deserving. It's fitting. He's unified the division. And, he has some good fights on the horizon. Strong fighter, does great things. He's just one of the people that I'm looking at. Of course, you got Timothy Bradley. I mentioned him earlier with his 2-fight win streak for 2013 over Ruslan and Marquez. Marquez coming off probably the best defining win of his career, knocking out Pacquiao. Then, of course, you got Kovalev. Like I said previously, he's on a 4-fight win streak in 2013. And he's, put the not just the division, but the entire boxing world on notice. You got Guillermo Rigondeaux, who's fought twice this year. Once dominating Nonito Donaire, a pound-for-pound fighter, a guy who most didn't think he would beat, and beating Joseph Ekbeko, former world champion, a guy that Nonito Donaire didn't even face when he was at that weight. Didn't even face him. Didn't face him or Johnny Perez. So I'm not in the least bit saying he ducked him, but he did not face him. Guillermo did, and beat him, and basically shut down everything he tried. And then you got, of course, Marcos Maidana, beating Josecito Lopez by knockout. Beating, by stoppage. Some people say same thing, but a stoppage is they stop it. A knockout is your ass was concussed. You know what I'm saying? And beating Jesus Soto Karass. And just recently beating the dog shit out of Adrian Broner, who was undefeated. 3-division world champion. And I'm sure some people think Floyd Mayweather should enter into the mix with his dominating wins over 4 or 5-time world champion Robert Guerrero and undefeated world champion Canelo Alvarez. And with the win over Alvarez, not only, or both of them, with the win over Alvarez, he didn't just knock off a young champion. He became basically a lineal champion in 2 divisions, welterweight and, 154 pounds. So it's out of Stevenson, Bradley, Kovalev, Rigondeaux, Maidana, or Floyd Mayweather, at least on my awards. I'm going to eliminate Kovalev off of there. Still haven't done enough yet. You haven't fought enough legit guys to be the fighter of the year, to make your name just stand out amongst all in the boxing world. Maybe I'm not taking Bradley off. No, he's deserving. It's fitting. I'm going to take Adonis Stevens off. I know he knocked out Chad Dawson and beat up Tavares Cloud and Bellew, but I'm not going to say that his name stands out amongst everyone else in the boxing world. In my book, it could, I definitely wouldn't deny it if somebody else chose him, but I'm not. You got Maidana. I don't know, man. I'm not sure. To me, it's going to be out of Mayweather, Maidana, Bradley, or Guillermo Rigondeaux. And man, I don't know. I think I know I'm gonna get some backlash on this, but I may have to go ahead and give it to Rigondeaux, man. I'm gonna have to give it to Rigondeaux because what he done was unprecedented, man. For all the criticisms that Guillermo Rigondeaux gets, those criticisms are usually parallel to any criticism you would give a professional guy with just 12 fights. So the stuff that you're saying that the guys say about him, that he runs, he's not entertaining, fights a bit amateurish, he's still a guy that's acclimating himself with the professional ranks. He only has 12 fights. Now, take a look at the way Andre Ward fought when he only had 12 fights. He fought amateurish too. Andre Durrell fought amateurish. A lot of guys fight amateurish when they don't have enough fights to get them properly seasoned as a professional. So, taking that into account, you also have to take into the account that he's beaten guys down with just 12 fights or under 15 fights. He's beaten them easily. Easily, man. Blowing right through them, whether former world champions or current world champions. He's beaten them. And the fact remains that he beat a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter, washed him, took all his hope, all his dreams, and Nonito Donaire, man. And you still have to take into account that Nonito Donaire did not have an answer for a guy with 12 fights. You cannot overlook that important fact. You know what I'm saying? And to me, his 2 fights this year stand out. Like I said, it can easily be Floyd. I mean, who else besides Henry Armstrong was lineal champ in 2 divisions at one time? I could be wrong. I know it's more than that. It may be more than that. I don't know. I can't remember right now. So if you chose Floyd, I'm not mad at you. If you chose Bradley, Bradley is very deserving. But I'm going to give it to, like I said, I'm going to roll with the underdogs on this one. I'm going to give it to the least likely guys the media to give it to, because I hate the media. And I'm giving it to Rigondeaux, Fighter of the Year for Ashy Knuckles. Fight of the Year goes to Ruslan Provodnikov versus Tim Bradley. In my opinion, that takes the cake for Fight of the Year. Of course, we just had Maidana versus Broner. We had Rios, Alvarado. I know it's a couple of other ones that was tight that happened earlier in the year. But to me, the one that was most entertaining out of all was Provodnikov versus Bradley. To me, that's going to be hard to top. Even though I'm partial to the Kirkland Tapia fight, it still didn't have the ebb and flows of a Bradley Provodnikov. I mean, you got Bradley at the interview after the fight talking about how he got a concussion. You got to give that boy his props for that. Upset of the year, it could be Broner Maidana. But a lot of people don't consider that an upset. They consider that vindication. They consider that the inevitable. You know what I'm saying? Upset of the year could easily go to Rigondeaux Donaire. A lot of people didn't think Rigondeaux had it in him, but then again, you had those supporters of Rigondeaux who swore up and down he was the one to unseat Donaire, and he did. But to me, upset of the year has to go to Johnny Gonzalez and his knockout victory over a surgeon, Abner Mares. Abner Mares, pound for pound, a guy that most felt Nonito wasn't going to fight. That was the fight of the ages for them. Of course, the Cold War prevented that from happening. And at the end of the day, both of those guys end up losing. But Mares is the only one that got stopped. So credit to Johnny Gonzalez for doing what he had to do after being overlooked by the media and a lot of boxing fans. Knockout of the year. Knockout of the year I'm going to give to Donaire. I think his knockout victory of Darchinyan after getting his ass whooped stole the cake. That took the cake right there, because I knew Darchinyan was going on to have a victory in that fight, because I was like, man, he is just mixing this boy up. And Donaire, he found the target, and he got the trajectory on the punch and caught Darchinyan straight slipping. and won that fight. So credit to Nonito for having a good comeback fight, knocking out Vic Darchinyan. Comeback fighter of the year, a lot of guys I could put in that. You got Hank Lundy, after being absolutely overlooked, came back, shut down a Jose. A Jose had just taken Lucas Matisse the distance. We already know how tough a Jose is. Eric Morales was supposed to fight him because he was due for his WBC title shot at 40. Danny Garcia didn't fight him when Jose was due for his WBC title shot at 40. And he fought hammering Hank Lundy. Nobody gave Lundy a shot to win, and not only did he win, he shut everything Jose tried down and dominated him. So props to Hank Lundy. You could be the comeback fighter of the year. Shout out to Kirkland coming back, shutting down Glenn Tapia. You got Manny Pacquiao, who came back and shut down Brandon Rios in a rout. You got, like I said, Marcos Maidana had a 3-fight win streak, all dominating fights. And of course you got Bernard Hopkins coming back from his defeat to Chad Dawson, beating Tavares Cloud, who was undefeated at that time if I'm not mistaken. And he just fought Marat too in Brooklyn and won that. So to me, I'm eliminating Lundy, I'm eliminating Kirkland and Pacquiao. To me, it's going to be out of Bernard Hopkins and Marcos Maidana. And I'm going to give it to Maidana. I was going to give it to Hop, but I'm going to give it to Maidana. I think what he just did, what he did in 13, he got to win some type of award. You know, Hopkins won plenty of awards. Matter of fact, they can tie as far as I give a damn. They can tie and share the award. But I think that was a very dominating victory. All his fights, Maidana, and he deserves it. Comeback fighter of the year, Marcus Chino Maidana, in that title-winning effort. Moving right along, got a couple more left, and I'm gonna shut this thing down. It's kind of going longer than I thought. Prospect of the year. At first I was thinking Terrence Crawford, but Terrence Crawford is about to fight Ricky Burns. Ricky Burns. You know I don't like calling people bums. I just thought that's a funny ass name. But since he's a world title contender / world title challenger, he can't be a prospect anymore. So I had to eliminate him from that. Same with Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman has an interim title. And he's about to get the shot at the regular title with Maidana if Maidana steps up to the plate and gives him that title shot, because he's supposed to get it now. You know, he's an interim champ. He has to get his shot. So he's not a prospect anymore. He's a legitimate world title contender / challenger. Of course, I was thinking Javier Fortuna. But is he really a prospect still? He's another one that should be considered a world title challenger. Well, he's not a challenger yet because he haven't had his opportunity to fight for a title at 26 or 30 if he got to move up. But he ain't no prospect. That's a contender. He ready. He just needed his opportunity. So in saying that, you still got Errol Spence out there. You got Saddam Ali out there. You got many prospects. Eddie Gomez, he's out there. You got that Julian Williams kid, he's out there. But to me, prospect of the year has to go to none other than Houston's own Jermall the Hitman Charlo. He has 7 fights this year, 7 victories, 7 KOs. He's one half of the Charlo brothers. He's moving right along in the ladder. 2013, I could easily see him knocking on the door for a world title at 54, probably 60, man. He's really, you know, when I first met him, he was damn near like 5-0. He ain't have no manager, he have no promotional company behind him. He was taking fights as he can get them, sometimes on a couple of weeks' notice, and he was still in there shutting guys down. And I've seen him shut many guys down in sparring, guys that were world champion. He in there beating the hell out of them, and I never outed them boys, because that's not my style. You know I don't pop it like that. I'm not trying to name drop and getting boys dissed online or anything like that. It wasn't Lara. If y'all thinking it's Lara, no, they don't fight. When they spar to get sharp. They don't spar to go hard. Actually, none of them really sparred to go hard and beat each other up. But I've seen him shut down current world champions at that time. And I've basically almost everybody he sparred, he's shutting them down any goddamn way. So it's hard to deal with that boy. He may not be one of those guys that's jumpy and rushes in and throw a bunch of punches like Keith Thurman, but Jermall does what Jermall do. And what he gonna do is put that jab on your ass. He gonna take your strength away from you, and then he gonna slide you that sleeping pill. That's what Jermall do. Jermall does what Jermall do. That's the prospect of the year for 2013. That's going to be the slogan as it pertains to the Hitman Charlo. Jermall does what Jermall do. You were deserving of that award. And last but not least, you got Robbery of the Year. Of course, you got Thomas Uzenhausen. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong for anybody who's South African. You know, I don't know how to pronounce that, but you know who I'm talking about. And he got his ass whooped against Brandon Gonzalez, so I can't condone that. It can definitely be Robbery of the Year. Then you got Ricky Burns, who had a draw against Ray Beltran. Beltran used to be a chief sparring partner for Manny Pacquiao. Was known to give Pacquiao a lot of good work. He's very, very tough, and guys be acting like you're bum. Get your mind right. You need to upgrade your knowledge. He ain't no bum. He ain't no guy that's had a high-profile promoter. He had to take the fights as he can get them. Sometimes on short notice. Sometimes he had to, you know, the thing about taking fights on short notice, it's not like you have the edge because you know who you fight. Neither guy know who they're gonna fight. But at the end of the day, the star fighter is the one who's had a camp. The guy who's taking the fight on short notice as the opponent, he don't get no full camp, and he still got to make weight. And that has been Beltran. Guys like that, you know, they have to stay in shape, stay somewhere near fight shape, because you never know when you're going to get the call. So, you know, stop saying that. You know, people need to get your mind right. Who you calling bums, you know what I'm saying? And he beat Ricky Burns and got shafted, but at least he didn't get an L. So, you know, I can't give it to I'm not gonna necessarily give it to Beltran versus Ricky Burns. To me, that was probably a runner-up. But to me, what took the cake as far as 2013 would have to be the upset of the year. Would have to go to Chavez Jr. over Brian Vera. That had to be the robbery of the year in my book. Now, I'm sure there are others out there that qualify for it, but that whole promotion, that whole build-up was bullshit. You got Chavez Jr., you know, supposedly trying to fight at middleweight. He was walking around at over 200 pounds before even going into camp. Then the fight was supposedly scheduled to be a couple of pounds over the middleweight limit into the super middleweight. Chavez was grossly out of shape. I guess he couldn't even burn and melt down to the catch weight that they were fighting at. And then Aram's trying to put a spin on it. He don't know what weight they're going to end up fighting at. So the whole time, Brian Vera in tip-top shape, he ready to go, and he don't even know what weight he fighting at. He at the weight limit that he signed to fight for at that catch weight. And they basically waited to damn near the weigh-in to negotiate a side deal to where Brian Vera and Chavez Jr. would fight at a catch weight of 172 or 173 pounds, which is almost 10 pounds over the fight weight that they agreed upon initially. So Brian Vera comes into the fight clearly the smaller man, but he's in tip-top shape. And then to make matters worse, he beat the dog shit out of Chavez Jr. and gets shafted of the decision. So in my opinion, the robbery of the year has to go to Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. versus Brian Vera. And that's going to cap off the video awards of the year. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's hear yours. It's your boy Ash with a deuce.